Hello, Culture Matters podcast. We're back to discuss my CEO manual process. What is the CEO manual? If you're curious, go on Culture Matters, the Culture Matters podcast, type in the Culture Matters podcast, the CEO manual. There's tons of videos on what it is, why it exists, interviews between me and the one and only Eric Guy, solo conversations with myself. Follow me, Jay Doran _ the Culture Man on Instagram for content around what it is to be a CEO, what it is to be a founder. Today, I'm going to share some of my answers and thoughts around one of the questions in the CEO manual, and hopefully foreshadow this process that I'm going through myself and that others are going through that you may or may not know. If those that have come through the podcast, maybe you're interested in the CEO manual, you're a founder of a business, a leader of a business, and you want to become a better leader, a more capable um, operator of a business builder. The CEO manual might be for you. But today I'm actually on page 51 of my CEO manual, question 10. So page 51 of over 120 pages of questions and content that breaks down what a CEO is. The three R's of the CEO: relationships, resources, and reasons. I've been working on this for months now. But, a few minutes here, a few minutes there. As you can see, my book is covered in answers. If you're watching this on YouTube, Jay Doran on YouTube, and we break down the CEO into the three R's of the CEO: relationships, resources, and reasons. And the purpose is to gain clarity and to have a broader, deeper understanding of vision, and to communicate it not just through words, but also through actions, a higher form of leadership for our company, shareholders, employees, customers. Going through this over the last 50 pages, see which I believe I'm almost to resources, but the last 50 pages, I wrote some notes of like, what has this actually done for me? So I didn't want to really, I didn't feel strongly of selling this, providing this to founders, CEOs, leaders, aspiring leaders. If I didn't go through it myself and see what would what would come of it. Although it is although it is the accumulation of thousands of hours of study, not just in the books, but in the field, working with actual leaders and businesses over the last 10 years. So it's the culmination of all of the hands-on experience that I've developed as an advisor to the people in that top spot as it relates to culture, to leadership, to business development, strategy, people. It's the culmination of all that experience and learning, like I said, in the books and in the field. My personality, um, won't feel confident bringing it to market, having not gone through it myself. Although people are investing in it and are going through it, and the feedback's been really great, I won't feel at the highest level of passion for anything if I'm not going through it myself. So, I started in June. I'm recording this right before the new year. It's breaking me down in the best ways. And some of my what I've gotten from going through myself, it has given me more clarity for Culture Matters as a business, not just as an idea, um, which in turn is helping me grow the organization just because um, we spend our time, intellectual property, resources, and so on, helping our customers, our client partners grow and succeed. It doesn't mean that the same forces that can undermine our customers, we're alleviated of those forces, or you know, impenetrable to those forces, or we don't, uh, we can't succumb to those forces. So we have to build a business just the same as we help other people build their businesses. So it's helped me gain clarity of where we're going, why we're going there, how we're going there, who am I as a leader, how am I showing up. The CEO manual's given me hope. It's broadened my vision of the company. It's created a deeper sense of meaning. It's separated the wheat from the chaff, as they say, in many ways. It's forced me to stop and think, which is helping me be more proactive and less reactive. There's an inherent reactivity to success, right? We have obligations as a consequence of the opportunities that we create. How do we create new opportunities while burdening the current opportunities? And a big part of that is the who. It's who we hire and who we don't, who we let go and who we don't. But it's also what we do as the organization grows. We, as in the founders of organizations, we're rewriting our job descriptions. It's who are the people around us that are helping us do that. It's helped me stop, think, the metaphorical, on the business versus in the business, that I have uh disdain is the first word that came out. Because it's both. It's an integration of both. But that's the purpose of this manual. It's happening to me. It's helped me listen better. It's helped me. The big thing is clarity, right? It's like, what are we building? Why? And where does it look like in the future? And better relationships. I desire to mature into a better leader. So I believe that I'm actually molting or breaking down going through this process, and the quality of people that I am preparing myself to attract to work alongside is broadening and deepening. And just the discipline to sit for a few minutes every day, and get this done. If you look at this book here, it is full of just my thoughts and answering these questions. And the coolest thing for me about this process has been, I did write the questions in a very specific order based on my experience and knowledge working in businesses with founders and CEOs over all these years. And to actually answer the questions myself and benefit from the questions that I wrote is eerie and cool and exciting, because yeah, this came from all of this experience and this knowledge and working, and the hundreds and hundreds of people that I've interviewed. That's not some random miscellaneous thing that's happening with this podcast. I'm gathering intel, I'm gathering data, I'm doing research, I'm figuring out the human condition. All of this is intentional. I'm building my culture. I'm building a community of people that I actually know in real life, that have wins and losses and pains and problems and visions and thwarted visions and expectations met and unmet, and all these things that's helping me be a better leader, better advisor, better consultant. And the idea is that our customers thrive and grow and are satisfied and beyond expectations, and our organization in turn grows as well. And the vision that I would have for my life and our family would become a reality as a consequence of that service. So the CEO manual's done so much for me up to this point, and I feel like I'm just getting started with it. I have many more questions to answer and many more thoughts to be contending with, but I'm going to share with you today, page 51, where I'm actually at in the process. You can get a taste. If you have interest in the CEO manual, just direct message me on Instagram, Jay Doran _ the culture man on Instagram, and I will respond to you. But question 10 on page 51, we're in the topic of, let's see here, resourcefulness. Under resources, we're under resourcefulness because every topic, the main topics, relationships, resources, and reasons are broken down into subtopics and questions in those subtopics. They'll build architect, the culture architect, and help me understand the vision and what we're doing here. What resources do disenfranchised employees take away from an organization? What resources do disenfranchised employees take away from an organization? Disenfranchised. What? What? Now, the first thought would be, what would a question like that even be in a manual like this? One of the phenomena that I've observed in small business is the the slow to fire, right? Quick to hire, slow to fire. That helps no one. Quick to hire, slow to fire helps no one. It hurts people. It hurts their lives. It hurts their families. It hurts their future. It hurts the organization. It hurts the shareholders. Because think about it. Quick to hire, slow to fire. So quick. We haven't listened. We haven't done the due diligence. You know, that infers a lack of clarity, a lack of vision, a lack of strategy, a lack of responsibility. You know, let's just get a body. We're just putting a band-aid on a wound that's infected. Now, this sounds, great. Wow, yeah. Oh, and people that have run businesses know how that what I just said sounds great, but it's so difficult to do. It's and why? Well, we're talking about anxiety, we're talking about fear, we're talking about the human condition, we're talking about avoiding conflict, we're talking about living in between what we know and what we know, what we don't know, which is part of leading and growing a business, is being in that seat of having responsibility based on what we've created and the uncertainties of what we don't know. We don't, yeah, the uncertainties of what we don't know, or we don't know, rather. Sorry, what we know we don't know. That creates anxiety. So, for example, this person isn't working out, but we don't have anybody else. Well, first of all, it's our job to have somebody else. It's our job. If we're in management, it's our job to have somebody else. That's a consequence of being engaged. That's a consequence of selling the vision. That's a consequence of selling. That's a consequence of showing up, being present, being bought in, having trust in one's organization and an organization trusting each individual. People are going to be pulled and called to the culture. There's going to be a long line of people wanting to be a part of the culture. If it's as genuine and integrated as it appears to be. If it's of integrity, there would be a long line. If there's not a long line, something is wrong. And diagnosing that, conversation for another day. But so disenfranchised, just for people that don't know the definition, I'll share it as we go into some of my answers and close here. So disenfranchised, and I don't like the shame culture we have where it's like everyone has to work out. It's how we go about it. Treating people with dignity and respect and humanity matters in the 21st century for sure. But disenfranchised, deprive someone of the right. Let's talk about voting. Forget that. Deprive someone of a right or privilege, a measure that would disenfranchise people from access. So what does disenfranchise? To deprive of a franchise legal right or privilege. What is a person? Yeah, here we go. What is another word for disenfranchise? Disqualified, disempowered, disable. Now, that's kind of where I want to go with this. Someone that's disengaged, disempowered, it could be because of management, and that's often the case. But even if it's, and it could, of course, it could be the individual, like wherever they're at in the season of their life and how they're showing up and that, it wasn't what we expected it to be. Like, it could be a character flaw in them. But I think being aware that it could fall into this binary where it's the organization's fault, it's the person's fault, I think misses the component of calling. Calling. I had a great guest on the Culture Matters podcast recently, Lior Arusi, who shared about this idea of passion, performance, and practice. The three P's of employee engagement is how I was interpreting it. And the passion piece was that his example was something to the effect of someone that, I believe it was someone that was a nurse in, just think of some, as a law, he didn't use this, but I forget, but as a logger, like, my calling is to be a nurse. And for whatever reason, I'm working in logging. As an individual, what I do is not integrated with who I am. Now, of course, what we do, there's a lot of reasons why we work, and it isn't all just for our own passion. People work for their children, people work for their parents, people work for their family, people work, insert the obligations that lead people accountable to others or the world. People work to pay taxes, people work to pay their mortgage. However, the ability to respond to conflict and have a meaningful life will have some relationship and buy-in and to an organization will have some relationship. And this is what Lior was alluding to with, is our calling, like what we're called to, are we passionate about what we're doing? Are we passionate about the industry? Are we passionate about the subject matter? Are we passionate about the job? Passionate about the opportunity? Part of the organization's job is to hire people that are great fits for what it is they're called to do. I mean, that is part of because the thing, if you're interviewing someone, you're listening, you're asking the questions, you're going to figure out, is this in alignment with the person's core belief structure? And that's a goal. This is all messy. It's going to be imperfect, but I wanted to add that because hiring and firing is one of the most expensive things for an organization. They spend the most money on hiring and firing. And even just the word fire, think about that. What culture do we live in? What world do we live in where that's actually the terminology that manifested itself over time? Firing. I think of the witch trials. And I often see how malevolent it can be to let people go and how people feel about it. And I don't think it happens that way most of the time with intention to hurt people. Oftentimes, it's just an anxiety creating responsibility to let someone go, to hire, and it's done reactively, not proactively, and that can be diminished on a spectrum. And that's our goal with Culture Matters. One of them is to try to help companies with how they hire and how they fire. And so anyway, here are some of my answers that I actually got from going through the CEO manual that I thought would be helpful to you. So what resources, though, do disenfranchised employees take away from an organization? Number one, opportunity cost. It's an opportunity cost conversation. Clients or referrals that could have been based on energy and effort. People that are less bought in are going to put less in. Now that's a generalization. That's a majority. There's a minority that, for their own accord, their own personal value set, that might not be true. And I do want to say that too. Like, you could have people that are disengaged from an organization. They're just operating at such a high level because they just operate at such a high level. And that organization is losing that talent. They're losing that person. That happens, especially when organizations become bureaucratic and tyrannical, kind of top down. It was actually said that another great, I'll shout out that episode with Lior. He talked about bureaucracy destroy. I want to put words in his mouth. I said undermining. He said, totally. I asked, does bureaucracy undermine personal responsibility? And the answer is yes. It does more than undermine it, though. It totally cuts off the possibility of personal choice of the people. And so for whatever reason, a disenfranchised employee is going to take away opportunity from the organization by just not showing up and being their best. there's an opportunity cost, as well as customer experience. That means that the value that the customer is getting is less because the vision of the organization, the purpose of the organization at the top is not translating to the bottom. What's really happening in real reality for the customer is not happening at the highest level. So those are what resources, this is the question, do disenfranchised employees take away from an organization? Is opportunity cost. They take away the customer experience, like the value exchange, the perception of value based on what actually happens. And of course, profit. That a disenfranchised, right, disempowered, uh, disabled, right? They're unable. They're whatever the reason, they're unable. This and remember, the reason could go back to the organization or the person, but it's a both and there's something to learn on both sides of that. Just blaming the people, I do not think is the right way to approach it. I think that that's not the way to approach it in the 21st century for sure, for various reasons. We're just more integrated with technology, the more transparent, the world is flatter, um, and the call to empathy and compassion and responsibility is higher for management. The last one, or the second to last one I wrote here, was energy, charisma, excitement, dopamine. That's all taken away. Dopamine, like, yeah, dopamine is released. That's the excitement part of our brain. Dopamine's released when we write our goals down, when we're engaged in when we're succeeding at something, when we're bought in, the dopamine's gonna create that excitement. It's that positive energy. It's that consequence of alignment. It's that consequence of values modeled. It's that consequence of trust and transparency and communication. Serotonin, right? We hug, oxytocin is released. Serotonin, that's that leadership drug, that neurotransmitter, right? So the leadership. Um, what resources do disenfranchised employees take away from an organization? They take away that serotonin. It's it's because the potential leaders don't mature into the potential leaders. They're and so they increase cortisol, which is the stress hormone, right? We have more stress and anxiety in the organization as a consequence of disenfranchised employees because, and that puts us into a reactive state. And it kind of just, it's like a dog chasing its tail. You don't know where, what's the root of this? That is where observation comes in, listening comes in, having third parties that are servants, right? That are there for the best, better, the best benefit of the company to help when management gets stuck in this tail, dog chasing its tail. That's why one of the reasons why what we do it matters and culture matters, right? So my fifth answer here is opportunity for others. What resources do disenfranchised employees take away from the organization? They take away from the organization the opportunity for other people to do those tasks, to work within those objectives, to burden the responsibility that comes with that job title. And that's a shame because that's going to limit the potential of the organization. And it's not helping those that are disenfranchised. And I want to say this in closing, the disenfranchised piece, that could be for a range of reasons. It doesn't have to be a conspiracy against the people or the management. It's life is constantly evolving. The world is accelerating change, overwhelming complexity, and tremendous competition, as Peter Drucker once said. And we've got to stay on top of these things and so I guess the takeaway is like, am I having the direct conversations? Am I leaning into the discomfort? Am I maturing from the founder psychology to the CEOs? And this is me on my journey, attempting to do that, to model that behavior as an aspiring leader of leaders. If you're interested in the CEO manual, this is just one question and some answers, a few minutes of thought of hundreds of questions and so much content that is coming from this this process. If you're watching on YouTube, you see the book. And the purpose is that more clarity and really action, right? Um, Speed to action is so huge for building a business and having it profitable, having it successful, and where it's actually creating opportunity for other people and serving its customers. So the CEO's manual's purpose is to help founders mature into CEOs, and I'm attempting to do so myself. And so please leave us a review in the Culture Matters podcast. Pick up your inquire of your copy of the CEO manual, and I will see you next time.